All right, so get ready, everyone, because today we are diving deep into the Northwest Passage.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Its history, its significance,
Mm-hmm.
really everything.
Yep.
So hopefully, by the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
our listeners will be experts
Let's do it.
on the Northwest Passage.
Right.
So to get us started, maybe you could just give us a little bit of a definition or an overview of what exactly the Northwest Passage is.
Sure, yeah. So the Northwest Passage is a sea road.
Okay.
So that's important to remember. It
Right.
goes through the Arctic Ocean
Okay.
and through the Canadian archipelago,
Oh, right. I see.
which is north of mainland North America.
Okay.
And basically it connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
So it's like a shortcut
Yeah.
from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Right, yeah.
Instead of having to go...
Instead of going all the way south
Right.
around the tip of South America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
So that was like
That makes sense.
a huge deal. And it's important to remember,
Yeah.
it's not just one passage.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a network of waterways.
Oh.
So that's why sometimes you'll hear people say Northwest Passages or Northwestern Passages.
Yeah.
Because there are many routes
Interesting.
through this area.
So that's good to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So if there are all these different waterways,
Yes.
I'm guessing this isn't exactly
Were
an
they-
easy place to sail.
No, not at all.
So tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
what makes it so hard to navigate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it's the Arctic, right?
Of course.
So you've got ice,
Yeah.
you've got really unpredictable weather.
Right.
So that's always a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
But also the geography of the archipelago itself. It's very complex.
Okay.
Lots of islands.
Yeah.
Narrow
Thanks,
channels, and you've got these strong currents flowing through there.
So it sounds like it would be pretty easy to get lost
Yeah, very easy.
or trapped.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, when did people first start trying to
Right.
navigate through this area?
Well, Europeans
Okay.
have been trying to find this passage for centuries.
Centuries.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ever since Columbus,
Yeah.
he was looking for a western route to Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of sparked this desire to find a shortcut to the east.
Okay.
And a lot of the early explorers,
Yeah.
they thought that seawater couldn't freeze.
Really? They thought the ocean wouldn't freeze.
Yeah, can you believe that?
It's hard to imagine.
It's kind of funny now.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a common belief back then.
I see.
And so they set off,
Mm-hmm.
with these, big dreams
Yeah.
of finding this open sea lane.
Of course.
And of course, they ran into a lot of trouble. One of the earliest explorers, Martin Frobisher,
Okay.
in the 16th century, he actually charted Frobisher Bay.
Okay.
It's in the Canadian Arctic,
Mm.
still bears his name today.
Wow.
But obviously, he didn't find the open passage he was looking for.
No, I guess not.
But, these early expeditions,
Yeah.
even if they were based on some flawed assumptions,
Right.
they did start to piece together
Yeah.
the map of the Arctic.
Oh, okay.
And they,
So they were learning.
yeah, they were learning, they were
Okay.
exploring,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
and they were also capturing people's imaginations.
Oh, wow.
There were even tales of these mythical passages,
Oh, wow.
like the Strait of Anarian,
Okay.
which, appeared on maps for centuries.
Oh, wow.
This idea of an easy road to China.
So that's kind of like wishful thinking.
Totally. Yeah, it really was.
I mean, it makes you wonder
Yeah.
what those early explorers would think
Right.
if they could see the Arctic today
Yeah.
with climate change, right?
Exactly.
The ice is melting.
Yeah.
It's more accessible
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
than it used to be.
Yeah.
But before we get into that,
Right.
I think we have to talk about one of the most famous
Yes,
and tragic stories
absolutely.
related to the Northwest Passage,
hmm
the Franklin expedition.
Oh, yeah.
This is a big one.
Yeah, Sir John Franklin
Right.
set sail in 1845
Okay.
with two ships, the HMS Erebus
Mm-hmm.
and the HMS Terror.
And they were looking for the Northwest Passage?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
They wanted to finally chart this elusive route.
Okay.
But,
What happened?
well, that's the thing. Both ships,
Yeah.
they vanished
Vanished.
without a trace.
What?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Well, the Arctic is a very unforgiving place,
Yeah.
especially back then.
Right.
And, Franklin's expedition,
Mm-hmm.
it was a bit of a mystery.
So what happened? Did they ever find out?
They did eventually.
Okay.
It took years of searching. And a lot of it was actually thanks to the Inuit people
Okay.
who lived in the area.
Mhm.
They had their own stories and knowledge
Right.
about what happened.
I see.
And through those stories and through
Oh.
the discovery of some artifacts,
Okay.
they were able to piece together
Mm-hmm.
what happened to the Franklin expedition.
What did they find out?
Well, it turns out the ships became icebound. Near King William Island.
Okay.
Right in the middle of the passage.
Wow.
And the crew, they faced a terrible fate.
What happened?
Well, they were stranded for years.
Oh my gosh.
They ran out of food. They were exposed to the harsh Arctic elements.
Right.
They suffered from scurvy.
Terrible.
And some recent studies have actually uncovered even more details about their ordeal.
Like what?
They found high levels of lead in the remains of the crew.
Wow.
Which they think might have come from poorly soldered food tins.
Oh, wow.
And there's also evidence to suggest that they may have resorted to cannibalism.
Oh my gosh, that's...
Yeah, it's a really dark chapter.
Really dark.
In the history of the Northwest Passage.
I mean, it's just incredible.
It is.
To think about what these explorers went through.
Yeah, the risks they took.
Yeah.
The hardships they endured.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It is.
So the Franklin expedition was a tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it didn't stop people from trying to find the Northwest Passage.
No. Not at all.
So who was the first to actually discover it?
Well, just a few years after the Franklin tragedy in 1851, Robert McClure, he's credited with discovering the Northwest Passage.
No, he was the first.
Well, there's a bit of a catch.
What do you mean?
Well, part of McClure's journey was completed by sledge.
By sledge.
Over the ice.
So he didn't actually sail the whole way?
No, not technically.
Interesting.
So he discovered it.
Okay.
But he didn't navigate it completely by sea.
So then who was the first to actually sail the entire Northwest Passage?
That would be Roald Amundsen.
Okay.
A Norwegian explorer.
Okay.
And he led an expedition through the passage between 1903 and 1906.
3 years.
Yeah, it took him a while.
Wow.
But he did it.
On a ship?
Yeah, on a ship called the Giara.
The Giara.
Yeah, it was a small herring boat.
A herring boat in the Arctic.
Yeah, I know it sounds strange.
Yeah.
But it was actually perfect for those conditions.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, it had a shallow draft.
Okay.
Which meant it could navigate those shallow channels in the Arctic.
Yeah.
And it was really sturdy.
So it could handle the ice.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, Amundsen knew what he was doing.
He sounds like a smart guy.
He was a very skilled explorer.
So he sailed the whole passage in 3 years.
Yeah, he actually spent 2 winters.
2 winters?
Yeah.
Wow.
On King William Island.
Wow.
And during that time, he learned a lot from the Inuit people.
Oh, okay.
About survival techniques.
Yeah.
And he even pinpointed the location of the North Magnetic Pole.
The North Magnetic Pole?
Yeah.
Wow, so he made a lot of discoveries.
He did.
During that time.
Yeah, he really made the most of his time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really inspiring story.
Yeah.
Of human resilience and ingenuity.
Yeah, totally.
You know, especially when you compare it to like the Franklin expedition, which was this big, grand expedition, you know, with lots of men and supplies.
Right.
And it didn't end well.
No.
Amundsen, he took a much more practical approach.
Yeah.
Small crew.
Okay.
Small ship.
Yeah.
Really focused on efficiency.
And he was successful.
He was.
Wow.
Yeah, it just goes to show that sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I guess.
Especially in the Arctic.
So by the early 20th century, the Northwest Passage was no longer a myth?
Right.
It was a real charted route.
But still incredibly difficult to navigate.
Oh, absolutely.
But I have a feeling that's where the story takes a turn, right?
Yeah.
With climate change.
Exactly.
The Arctic is changing, and the Northwest Passage is becoming
it's a whole new chapter.
More accessible.
Yeah, and that brings
ever before.
It brings a whole new set of challenges and opportunities that we'll talk about.
Okay, sounds good.
In the next part of our deep dive.
All right, well, we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
All right, so we've been talking about the Northwest Passage.
Yes.
And all the challenges of exploring this area.
Right.
But now things are changing.
They are.
Climate change is melting the ice.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for the future of the Northwest Passage?
Well, it's definitely created some new opportunities.
Okay.
And it's also brought some new challenges.
Okay, so let's talk about the opportunities first.
Okay, so the biggest opportunity is increased shipping traffic. Okay.
So as the ice melts, it becomes easier for ships to travel through the Northwest Passage.
So it could be a major shipping route?
It could be, yeah.
Okay.
A much shorter route between Europe and Asia than going through the Panama Canal.
That makes sense.
So, you know, there's a lot of potential there.
So are we going to start seeing like massive container ships going through the Arctic?
Well, not so fast.
Okay.
Even with less ice.
Yeah. it's still a very challenging place to navigate.
Right. There's still a lot of ice.
Oh, okay.
Especially in certain areas.
Like where?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is something called multi-year ice.
Multi-year ice. What's that?
So multi-year ice.
Okay.
It's basically ice that hasn't completely melted during the summer months.
Okay.
So it builds up over time and it gets really thick and dense.
Wow.
Much thicker than first-year ice.
Oh.
Which melts and refreezes every year.
Ice.
So multi-year ice.
Yeah.
It's really tough for ships to break through.
So even if the rest of the passage is relatively clear, these pockets of multi-year ice could still block ships.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
And that's a big problem for shipping companies.
Right.
Because they rely on precise timing.
Of course.
Any delay can cost them a lot of money.
So this multi-year ice, it's a major obstacle for shipping in the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, and then there are also other challenges.
Like what?
Well, the Arctic is still a very remote and unpredictable environment.
Right.
So you've got unpredictable weather, you've got strong currents, you've got limited infrastructure.
What do you mean by infrastructure?
Well, I mean things like ports and search and rescue facilities.
Right.
So if something goes wrong, it can be very difficult to get help.
So it sounds like even with less ice, the Northwest Passage is still a risky place to ship goods.
It is,
It's not exactly a simple solution to our shipping problem.
No, it's not a silver bullet, but it's definitely something that has the potential to change the face of global shipping.
So it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the shipping opportunities, but you mentioned there were also some challenges related to the melting ice. So what are those?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is the issue of sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yeah. So who controls the Northwest Passage?
Right.
Canada claims that the passage is part of their internal waters.
Internal waters.
Yeah. So basically, they're saying it's part of their territory.
I see.
And they have the right to control who goes through it.
Okay. That makes sense.
But the United States, they disagree.
They do.
Yeah. They say that the Northwest Passage is an international strait.
International strait. What does that mean?
Well, it means that it's open to all ships from all countries.
So the U.S. is saying that anyone can sail through the Northwest Passage?
Yeah, they're basically saying that Canada doesn't have the right
to control it.
I
see.
So you can see how this...
Yeah, that's a pretty big disagreement.
Yeah, it's a major point of contention.
So has this ever caused any problems?
It has, yeah.
Like what?
Well, back in 1985, the United States sent an icebreaker.
An icebreaker?
Yeah, a Coast Guard icebreaker. Called the Polar Sea. Through the Northwest Passage without asking Canada's permission. And that caused a bit of a diplomatic incident.
I bet it did.
Yeah, Canada was not happy.
Yeah.
They said that they should have been notified.
Right.
And that they should have been given the opportunity to exercise control over the passage.
Yeah.
But the United States, they maintained
that
they had the right to free passage.
So it sounds like this is a pretty sensitive issue.
It is, yeah.
And it's probably only going to get more complicated as the ice continues to melt.
Exactly.
And the Northwest Passage becomes more accessible.
Right. There's a lot at stake here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to watch.
Okay, so we've got shipping and sovereignty.
Right.
What other challenges are there?
Well, another big challenge is the impact of climate change.
Okay, so we're seeing the effects of climate change in the Arctic.
Absolutely.
And that's causing some problems.
It is, yeah.
Okay, like what?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the impact on the Arctic ecosystem.
The ecosystem, right?
Yeah, so as the ice melts, it's affecting the habitats of many species.
Oh, okay.
Some species are thriving in warmer waters, but others are struggling. And some species are even migrating.
Migrating?
Yeah, they're moving from the Pacific to the Atlantic.
Through the Northwest Passage.
Exactly.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so for example, the gray whale.
Okay.
It was once extinct in the Atlantic.
Extinct?
Yeah, but it's recently reappeared.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and scientists think that it may have traveled through the Northwest Passage.
From the Pacific.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It is.
I mean, it's sad that it was extinct in the first place.
Of course.
But it's great that it's back.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign that the ecosystem is changing.
Right.
And it's not just the gray whale.
Oh, okay.
There are other species that are migrating as well.
Okay. Like what?
Well, there's the type of plankton.
Plankton?
Yeah, called Neodenticulus seminae.
Okay.
And it was absent.
Absent?
Yeah, from the Atlantic.
Okay.
For 800,000 years.
800,000 years?
Yeah, but now it's becoming more prevalent.
Okay.
And again, scientists think it may have traveled through the Northwest Passage.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
So these species, they're basically taking advantage of the melting ice to expand their range.
Yeah. It's like...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like a natural experiment.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing how these different species are reacting to these changes in the environment.
So it's not just about shipping and sovereignty.
Yeah.
It's also about...
It's about the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And how it's being affected.
Right. So it's a very complex issue.
It is, yeah.
With a lot of different factors.
Yeah. And it's only going to get more complex as time goes on.
So it's something we need to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
And try to understand the best we can.
Yeah, because the decisions we make about the Northwest Passage, they're going to have a big impact on the future of the Arctic.
And the world.
And the world, exactly.
So speaking of the future, what about all those people who are drawn to the adventure and the challenge of the Arctic?
Right.
Have there been any notable voyages?
There have
Or expeditions in recent times?
Yeah, so even though it's becoming more accessible, it's still a very challenging place to explore.
Of course.
But that hasn't stopped people from trying.
So tell me about some of these modern day explorers.
Okay, so one of the most notable was Ranulph Fiennes and Charles Burton. Back in 1981, they completed the first west to east open boat transit.
Open boat?
Yeah, so they crossed the Northwest Passage in a small boat.
So no cabin or anything?
No, but just a small open boat.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
So they were completely exposed to the elements. That's amazing.
It was an incredible feat
of
human endurance.
Totally.
And it just shows that even today, the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, it's still a place that can test the limits of human capability.
Absolutely.
So what other expeditions have there been?
Well, in 1984, the MV Explorer became the first cruise ship.
The first cruise ship to navigate the Northwest Passage.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is.
I mean, it makes sense with the ice melting. It's becoming more accessible.
Yeah, so now cruise ships are a regular sight.
Wow.
In the Northwest Passage.
That's wild.
It is.
So what else? What other expeditions?
Okay, well, in 2009, there was a really interesting expedition where a team drove. Yeah, they drove across sections of the Northwest Passage.
On the ice?
On the sea ice, yeah.
Wow, how is that even possible?
Well, they were transporting a Humvee rover.
A Humvee?
Yeah, it was called the HMP Ocarian.
Okay.
And it was designed to simulate Mars rovers.
Wow, so they were testing it out in the Arctic.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
It is.
I mean, it makes sense. The Arctic is a pretty extreme environment.
Yeah, it's a good place to test that equipment.
Right. That's going to be used in other extreme environments.
Exactly.
So what other expeditions have there been?
Well, in 2012, the Beelzebub II became the first sailboat.
The first sailboat?
Yeah.
To successfully navigate? Okay.
In the Calora Strait.
The Calora Strait. Isn't that one of the most
difficult sections? Yeah, it's very narrow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's often choked with ice.
So for a sailboat to make it through there?
Yeah. It was quite a feat.
That's impressive.
It is.
So it seems like every year there's a new milestone in navigating the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, and in 2013, there's another big one.
What was that?
Well, the Nordic Orion became the first commercial bulk carrier to use the Northwest Passage.
Wow, so a real commercial ship.
Yeah, it was carrying coal.
Coal?
Yeah, from Canada to Finland.
Wow, so that was a big deal.
It was, yeah.
I mean, it shows that the Northwest Passage is becoming a viable shipping route.
Exactly.
But it also probably raised some concerns.
It did.
About the environmental impact of all this shipping traffic.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword?
It is. On the one hand, it's an opportunity for trade and economic development.
But on the other hand, we have to be careful about the environment.
Yeah, we need to make sure that we're not doing more harm than good.
Okay, so shipping, sovereignty, and the environment.
Right.
Those are the big challenges facing the Northwest Passage.
And they're all interconnected. So it's a very complex issue.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for the future of the Northwest Passage?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Well, we've explored so much of the Northwest Passage already.
We have.
I mean, from the early explorers, their, dreams of a shortcut to Asia, all the way to modern-day adventurers who are pushing those boundaries.
Pushing the limits,
of what's possible.
Exactly.
And now we've got climate change, right? Melting that ice. And it feels like we're about to enter this whole...
It does. It feels like a turning point.
New chapter.
Yeah, definitely.
For the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chapter that's full of potential, right?
Okay.
But also full of uncertainty.
Yeah.
The Northwest Passage has become this focal point for all these different discussions about shipping, resources, the environment, international relations. It's a lot.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. So... as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the things that you hope our listener really walks away with?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that the past is never truly behind us.
Oh, okay.
The legacy of those early explorers, the triumphs and tragedies, it continues to shape our understanding of the Arctic.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
And it also highlights that human desire, right? To explore.
To explore, to discover.
See what's out there.
Yeah, to push the boundaries.
And to push the limits of what's possible.
And also, I think it reminds us of the power of the Arctic.
Oh, yeah.
How unforgiving it can be.
Right.
It's a place where you really need to...
respect it.
Respect it, yeah. Be prepared.
Right.
Be adaptable.
Okay.
If you want to survive.
So respect, be prepared, and adapt.
Yeah, I think those are good rules.
Good rules for the Arctic.
Yeah. For the Arctic, for life in general, maybe.
Yeah.
But now we're facing this whole new set of challenges.
Right.
Driven by climate change.
And that's changing the Arctic landscape.
Yeah, in ways that we're only beginning to understand.
Right.
But we're seeing those opportunities for increased shipping.
Right. Access to resources.
Access to resources.
And this need to protect this fragile ecosystem.
Yeah, because it's facing this unprecedented change. Yeah. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of these international disputes.
It's a lot.
It is.
So it seems like the Northwest Passage has become this...
It's almost like a microcosm of all these larger issues that we're facing.
As a planet. Yeah. So how do we balance economic development with environmental protection?
Yeah.
How do we navigate these complex geopolitical issues?
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's tough.
It's really tough.
Yeah. But the Northwest Passage gives us this chance, right?
It does. It's like this unique opportunity to try to find solutions that can maybe be a model
for other areas facing similar challenges.
Exactly.
So it's a test case.
It is.
For our ability to work together.
To collaborate.
Come up with solutions.
To innovate, to adapt to this changing world.
Wow.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
And a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But definitely exciting.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a final thought.
All right, I'm listening.
We've talked about all these different possibilities, right? Shipping, resources, international disputes. What if the Northwest Passage becomes something else?
Something else entirely?
Yeah, something more.
Okay, I like where you're going with that.
What if we see it as this place where we can learn from the impacts of climate change? A place to learn from the indigenous people who have called this area home.
For millennia.
For so long.
Yeah.
A place to foster international cooperation.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful vision.
It is.
It's not just about reacting to change.
Right.
It's about shaping the future.
We have the power to do that.
We do.
And the Northwest Passage could be that symbol of resilience.
Of collaboration. Of our commitment
to the planet.
For finding solutions for humanity and for the planet.
So it's a reminder that this isn't just about economics.
It's not just about politics.
It's about our responsibility to this planet.
To be stewards of this planet.
Exactly.
I love that.
So we encourage all of you listening
to
keep exploring this topic.
Yeah, there's so much to learn.
There is so much information out there. I mean, from historical accounts to scientific studies.
The voices of the Inuit people.
Right, who have such a
deep connection.
Deep connection to this region.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
It is inspiring.
So yeah, keep learning, keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
For this deep dive into the Northwest Passage.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring.